Welcome back to Holistic Healing Association. Today I have Mother Mary, Veronica, and Faith. Where's Faith? Hi, Faith.
There she,
Faith is a German Shepherd.
yes. Yes, she's a 7-year-old German Shepherd.
And thank you for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Um, well, I'm 61 years old. I am from Wisconsin in the United States. And I'm a Catholic sister. And just very briefly, yes, I'm wearing red and white. And the reason is because of the blood and water that came out of the heart of Jesus. Everyone wants to know. So, at any rate, that's why I have a red and white habit. Um, and My background was in animals, especially horses and dogs. And I put aside first a vocation to work with the animals, and then I put aside the animals to work to have a vocation. And then I found out that actually I'm supposed to have both. And that's how I am called to be fruitful for God and for others, for people.
Amazing.
It is amazing. God surprises you.
He does. He
He
definitely,
does.
definitely does. And can you tell us a little bit about your order?
So I'm the foundress of the order only because I felt called to be doing something that there was no other community doing. And so because you cannot have a new community without doing something else. Otherwise they say just join what already exists. So I felt a call to religious life 34 or 5 years ago. I felt called particularly, this is a divine mercy community. But what I felt called to didn't exist. Joined another community, and in 2016, I got permission from my superiors and from Rome to come out and try to start a new one. And felt called to not only to share about God's divine mercy and to pray and sacrifice, but also to use therapy animals, spiritual direction, and trauma-informed life coaching as a way to help. What we do is part of it is we reconcile relationships with self, others, and God. That's what's called our charism. And so it's about reconciling those relationships, and those are the ways that we use to do that.
Okay. And today we're here to talk about trauma. Have you experienced a trauma in your own life?
Quite a few, actually. Quite a few. Hmm. So didn't have a good time in school at all. I grew up in Minneapolis, a mile from downtown, between downtown and uptown. And I went to a Catholic first through sixth school, and that was not so bad, but I got in the public schools and it was absolutely terrifying. So much violence, uh, so much violence, and drugs and drinking. And I basically was terrified. And during junior high, I literally like had the runs just constantly, you know. Um,
From stress?
Oh, yes, very, very stressed. And the animals really were what pulled me through, that um, I needed relationships, but uh, a lot of the youth that I was in school with just, I just, I love to learn, but I absolutely hated school, and I just couldn't wait to get out of it, so. But the animals helped me to stay more balanced. They were my way to make it through. So And they can be the way for many people, and that's part of what we do here.
Okay. And how did going to school on a consistent basis every day, needing to sit in the classroom in a chair when you hated it, how did that affect your nervous system?
I mean, I, well, I ended up just shutting down, and I was so desperate to try to fit in with the well, the thing is I couldn't fit in because I didn't want to do all those things that they wanted to do that weren't good. So I couldn't fit in, and I still tried to fit in enough to survive. I actually ended up my nature isn't to be feisty, but I ended up getting feisty just to try to, and it was only in 10th grade, 11th grade, when I started getting more feisty and started being not so gentle and quiet, which would be my nature, that finally the other youth got off my back because I had so many things happen to me. I had things stolen from me, and you're just walking down the hall and people start hitting you. And it's just
Wow.
like, I didn't do anything. And, but what ended up happening is my heart became hardened, my emotions, they shut down. And years later, I got to the point of where I literally couldn't feel anything of what I felt to speak of. I thought I had no anger because I didn't feel it, and I didn't want to be angry. I thought I was trying to be good, trying to be really good and be good Catholic, and, you know, but, that ended up bringing me into kind of a pretty good emotional shipwreck, to be honest, you know, because I couldn't deal, I couldn't deal with difficulties with people at all. I'd get terrified. I ended up afraid of everything, and I ended up, and if I got afraid, I would basically just kind of shut down. And even like with things of faith that I knew were true, if I would be talking with someone and if they would question something at all, I would just almost turn into a pile of jelly. I could not use my mind, couldn't even reason, so it was a lot. And I mean, there's so many things that happened. I ended up with, um, you know, having to have a very limited diet. Um, you know, I had a really active life, so I had some injuries and stuff. So there's some reason for it, but I also ended up with a very high level of pain, and people, um, they thought I had fibromyalgia. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, you know.
Wow.
Um, it was a mess, and I was so exhausted. I had weakness in my arms. Um, it was amazing. It was amazing.
Sounds very
The effect.
traumatic.
It was, although I didn't even realize, I didn't have a clue of what was going on because I didn't know anything about emotions. Like
What is
almost,
an emotion?
I think it's important to understand that different people will define emotion a different way. And I've had some training from this Dr. Conrad Bars, which a Catholic psychologist who I really like. And an emotion, and you'll hear other definitions and it's more like aspects that you're looking at. So it's not that the definitions are contradicting each other. It's just that I'm going to focus on one aspect of the emotion, which would be the fact that an emotion is a result of from a stimulus of something happened. If somebody punches me in the face, I don't have to say, gee, should I get angry? I just get angry. you know If I see a beautiful sunset, I don't have to, you know, think, well, should I love this? You know, it's just like, oh, I love this. It's so beautiful. So emotions are a result of a stimulus, and that's really important to know because, you know, I, of course, as a Catholic, and I get into the question of, you can get into the question of morality of emotions. And even if you're not a Catholic, still, okay, the common thing, and this is where I got into super big trouble, was okay, if I am angry, and the Bible said, some places they talk about getting rid of all sloth and anger and everything else, and it's like, okay, I've got to get rid of all my anger, right? I can't feel it, it's bad. That's what I thought. And but the problem is, if anger is not the result of my will, there's no way I can sin. The initial part of it, I can sin with anger by choosing to vent on it and consent and do something evil with it. But just having anger or even rage is not sinful. So important to know. That's why it's so important to know that an emotion results from a stimulus. I don't decide. Now, the thing about emotions, and again, this is teaching of Dr. Conrad Bars, which is that, according to St. Thomas Aquinas, emotions are naturally obedient to reason, which is Dr. Conrad Bars said that basically this means that the mission of every emotion I have is to get to my reason. And the difficulty comes in here when I end up either venting on an emotion, giving it energy, more energy than it had, and making it, with my will, making it bigger. Or, which doesn't get it to my reason, because if my will takes off and runs with it before it gets to reason, reason never gets a chance to look at it. And then the other one is, if I, suppress, repress, if I push away in any way that emotion, well, it can't get to my reason. The only way that emotion can get to my reason is if I freely allow it to, if I don't impede it, and so it's so important that, if I've got, anger or hatred, despair, that's another real good one. Despair. People think that's, no, sad, they're not, those aren't bad emotions. There's purposes for them all. God gave them to us to basically help us keep the integrity of our person and others, and to get us closer to him. That's what they're given to us for. And it's question of using them.
And how do emotions get trapped in the body?
How do they get trapped in the body? Well, so emotions have what's called a somatic component, and soma would be body. And so if I'm angry, that is going to affect my heart. It's going to affect my blood vessels. And so and if I don't process that emotion, if it doesn't get to reason and get processed and complete its cycle, then my body is going to be stuck in these reactions that are caused by it still being part of me. And see, the thing about human beings is that we're body and soul. And of course, you could say body, mind, and soul, but we're a unity. What affects one part of me affects all of me. You can't separate it. So, and part of it is to, okay, so let's say I'm frightened and the thing, things are activated so that I could maybe run away. Well, fear or anger is meant to get us ready even to defend ourselves. Okay, my body, it gets my body ready, but then my body stays in this state of readiness when the cycle isn't completed where it can get to our reason. So there it gets trapped in our body, and then we start, oh, my neck, oh, my jaw, oh, I know Dr. Conrad Bars himself died of a heart attack because he damaged his heart earlier in his life when he was in the concentration camp, and he was so angry. He was so angry at the Germans, he used the power from the anger to survive. But he said that since he didn't know completely at that time how to work with that emotion, get it processed through, it actually ended up damaging his heart, and he died from a heart attack.
And when we repress our emotions, can it lead to health problems?
Well, as you can see in me, yes, lots of health problems. You're talking heart attack, anxiety, insomnia, um, many, many skin problems. It it will go on and on. You can have the things of fibromyalgia, you can just many, many, many health problems, and frankly, even just plain the stress. If you are stressed, whatever are the weak parts in your body are gonna get, they're gonna get affected, you know, and you'll be.
And do you find most people have a hard time or do not know how to process their emotions?
Unfortunately, yes. Uh, Really few people, very few people. I talked about 3 ways to, handle an emotion. And the one that isn't used is basically, as Dr. Conrad Bars would say, feel, accept, respect. But basically, you're talking about processing it, you know, letting it go. It's the whole thing, letting it, allowing it to get to our mind and our reason. It, because it's so easy. It's so easy to push away an emotion. We're taught to do that at a very young age, actually. Most of us. Most of us were taught before we almost could speak. If they didn't like it when we cried and they, put you away, or they punish you for a temper tantrum, then pretty soon you start avoiding those temper tantrums. You start shutting that emotion away because that's going to interfere with my relationship with my parent and caregiver, and then I won't feel safe. So, and then the adults around us as we grow up, if they don't know how to regulate their nervous system, the children, the babies can't. They're dependent upon the nervous system of the adult. And so if the people around us aren't really well regulated, we're not going to be able to learn how to regulate very well either. And this knowledge, this education, we do a lot with what we do with education. We work with the therapy animals. I do the trauma informed life coaching. I do the spiritual direction, and but we do a whole lot of education, because the more we understand about this, and awareness is key, but without the education to know, I mean, we teach about the nervous system, we teach about the emotions and how they work, what they're for, how do I be able to tell? And even in the case of morality issues, how do I know if I've consented to something evil or not? How can I tell if I'm venting? All these things, this education will help them to become more and more self-aware. And that's just of the emotions. We haven't even gotten into our body yet, how that is. Because when I was working on my recovery, oftentimes the first clue I would have is, oh, gee, I called it repression mouth. I could feel my mouth getting tight and my face getting tight. And I'm like, oh, so what emotion am I repressing? And I would check it out and look, oh, my neck hurts. Oh, my head hurts.
I've noticed that in sessions myself. I was like, oh, my neck, my neck. I was going in here. Somebody was doing a session on me, and I'm like, oh, my neck. They were like, that's not your neck. That's your jaw. And that's where you hold in repressed anger. You hold a lot of anger in your jaw. And I know even in high school, I was biting down on my teeth so hard. At night, I had to wear a mouth guard, and I was literally biting through them, making holes in the mouth guard. Um, and it was probably because I was repressing my anger.
Yeah, probably been
And what
pretty good at.
percentage of people do you believe hold trauma in their bodies?
Well, it's really a question of how much. Everyone has trauma. Um, and it's a question of, okay, some people maybe very minimal, so maybe they're it's slight and not making much of a difference. But um really, at least the people that I'm encountering, um most people have substantial. Most people have something substantial. There's seems like every family has at least one thing that's awful, that really has happened, that has traumatized the family and whatever relationships.
And can families pass down trauma through generation to generation?
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah. It's not just the experiential, it's not just formative from your young years. The cells actually pass it, and you get to some really interesting things where people have a fear of something that you find out it has to do with their parent or their grandparent, you know, that got passed on, and they don't even know why they have that fear. Um, so yes, there's many ways it can be passed on.
And do you find most people realize they have trauma?
Um, I guess there's the one question I have is, I think maybe more people realize they have trauma than are able to admit it. I think a lot of people, when you start hearing trauma, it's like there's something wrong with me and I'm afraid of that, or there's just simply unaware, unaware. Um, and there's a lot of unawareness because the mind starts shutting down our awareness to our body, because we can't deal with the awareness. And so it's really interesting when you start working with people that they start being able to feel things they have not felt for years, easily for years. I started out with one young lady I was working with, and at first I'm asking, you know, how, just to do this body check and look at, how does, each body part feel. And it would be, it starts out, and this is not just her, it's, other people, it's just like, my head feels fine, my neck feels fine, everything feels fine, you know. And then you get down to, I was so proud of this young lady because it was just like, recently she was like, I can feel the clothes touching my such and so, and she was just able to feel so many things. This is pressing on here. She was able to take in so many sensations and be aware of so many sensations, whereas before, just unaware. I was teaching a class, understanding others' faults and trauma, and mine too. And I do it, I'm actually teaching, usually it's couples, and I'm teaching them. I only do no more than 4 really for the processing part. I don't teach them the life coaching, but I teach them to work through the process and to be, in a sense, partners for each other to help, not where they're coaching the other person through, but they're able to listen and to do what we call hold space for them. And then the other person, the one person, they switch off. The one person is working through their trauma. The other one, and trying to process that emotion, and different things in the body as we do it. And the other one is praying, and regulating their body so that it helps in nervous system. So the other person is able to, because the person who's the partner is actually allowing the person who's working through it to keep on a steadier level, since nervous systems co-regulate. So they
Interesting.
regulate their nervous system, and then we add prayer to it so that we're calling down God's healing upon this person. So I do this class, and we had a session, and then I go around, and they're working through it, and I kind of go around and check in with them and work with them a little bit. And so the man, when I said, when he came in, that Christmas tree, oh, smells so good. And he told me later, he was thinking like, I don't even smell it, nothing. Well, when he came back into the room after we had our session, he's like, he could smell the Christmas tree. And the particular man is shut down. He has a lot of shut down. So we're working on getting that awareness. And, with him, I've had to work through the body, because the feeling of the emotions is still minimal. But we worked with the body, and it was so interesting to see. You begin to smell things, to perceive things that you couldn't before. And, a little thing, it's a little thing, but maybe it's bigger than a little thing, to be able to enjoy the scent of flowers or whatever else.
And so you're talking about learning how to feel emotions, how to smell, how to be aware of all your sensations. And you're doing this, from my understanding, through somatics. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean, we I do that, working on that body awareness, so that they can really, well, the body is the way, sometimes it's the only way that I can allow them to get to where they can connect with their emotions. But it's so interesting, because I've had people that I've worked with that were in such a state, I couldn't even ask them to feel what was in their body. So what I did was I put them up on a horse and just led the horse around. And the horse will regulate. The horse has a special ability, a greater ability. Horses are the premier therapy animals of all. I am not outside in the barn with horses, because I'd be wrapped up like a mummy if I was. Right. But they are very good at regulating our nervous system, regulating our heartbeat. They have a emotional field 5 times the size of a human being. And they've done studies, and the human being is more likely to regulate to the horse than the horse is to the human being.
Interesting.
So I got them up on this horse, and there's something about the motion of a horse. The motion of a horse has gotten autistic people to speak. Okay. So I got them up, and they just sat there and just allowed that motion of the horse. And that helps that person so much. And we do a number of different kinds of therapy with the dogs and horses. We have a kind of a wide scope. Like Faith is used during sessions sometimes. And basically she will come up, first someone was talking about, how lonely and isolated they feel. Well, Faith will come up, and she will, come up, and she could feel that person. And there's where that touch, because touch is one of the ways that you get your healing through your body. And with the animals, touch is much safer. Safer on both sides, really.
And
Safer.
also, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. You can step in.
Also, when people have trauma at points, they've been hurt so much that they have a hard time trusting people, and it's
Yes,
easier to trust animals.
it is. So you have that opening there. And the thing is, I mean, there's so much I could say with the children, for instance, when we're working with the children, and some of the ones we have are quite traumatized and, shut down. Their heart is almost shut down to people and to trusting and loving. But the animals, you start opening up there, and they don't want to. Those most children do not want to talk about their emotions. Well, first of all, if they've been had a lot of punishment for those emotions, for having them, they're scared stiffless to even talk about, to bring up the subject. So we have to get in another way. And really here we try to be very holistic. And yes, we do the teaching, we do the trauma informed life coaching, and I like working with the parents and the children together. That is real fruitful because the parent learns how to work with the child and work them through and stuff like that. And the parent learns a lot. But there's, we try to address, and we do nature here, just simply nature. Go for a nature walk. Nature is healing. There's so much though. You can ride, you can pet, you can groom, you can feed, and then on the top of that, uh, we have some kill pen rescues, and most of our horses, except for one, are Mustangs, and so some of these horses have had severe trauma, and sometimes they can relate more with the more traumatized horses than they can with the other ones. They get a bond with them. And the children also, adults too, they actually help the horses work through their trauma, and they learn by doing that as well. So we have like a multifaceted way that we work with the animals and the people. And the cats are part of it too.
Sorry, the cat's a part of it?
The cats are part of it too, and they're an important part. Some people really relate with cats. Um, so we have some, they mouse our barns, but they're therapy cats. And, just being able to pet and stroke that cat, and you know, that, the purr of a cat has a special effect on humans for healing. It's amazing how God gave like different abilities to different animals to help affect people. And of course, some people are drawn to more to one animal than another animal.
Amazing.
And we try to supply on our farm, to holistically and to get into the avenues, whatever avenue works for that person. We try to tailor everything very individually, for the individual or for the family. And it's very exciting. And the animals are marvelous. Like I said, faith comes up right if they feel someone gets a strong emotion, she comes up there and she comforts them, you know.
And how do people start to process their emotions?
Well, it depends on the person. I'm really a lot on individual. So, it depends on how I can reach them. Do they need to go out to the horses and just be and pet and start getting into their body through that physical contact and interaction with the horse? Um, you know, a man, does it start with just plain education? You know, um, with the children, we work a lot with fun. Play is very important for in a sense, reprogramming our body and our mind. You will learn, the mind learns 20 times faster if it's learned during play. So we use play as well. So it's a question for me of learning where the person is at and trying to follow what I would say, how God is leading them or how the Holy Spirit is leading them. Because what I don't want to do is lead them according to what I never, no, not everybody is like me. I do want to lead them according to, try to discern what's happening in this person, see where the openings are, and, you know, so that's basically how I do it. You know, there's a lot of listening involved. You know, Saint Ignatius used to say, I go in their door, they come out my door, you know, but first we have to go in their door.
And what do you find the difference between somatic therapy and talk therapy is?
Well, when I was, before I learned about somatic therapy, ah, yes, I helped people. I did. I helped people, but the horizon, the ability, it just widens out the horizons, and the ability to unlock, in a sense, things that by talk, it's too hard for them. You're not going to be able to do it. And, you know, again, you start talking about a human person is body and soul. You know, some people might want to add mind in there, but you need to address the whole thing. And oftentimes it's through the body that is the easiest and the least resistance. And the effectivity of what I've been able to do, you know, or help people through, really, it's not so much what I'm able to do, because I don't do it. They do it. I guide them, I coach them, I give these opportunities, we give these opportunities, and we support them, and they're they're able to do it. But it just, it just opened up many horizons. And of course, we can think of somatics, you know, as in like sessions like we have with a life coach or somebody else, but you know, where it's, you know, you're getting really aware of the body, but it's also somatics when we are working with the animals, because we're in nature, we're still working through the body. And I just think the people are able to deal with, you know, their very deepest, even very traumatized people are able to deal and get to the bottom of the very deepest problems in a way that is gentler. It's gentler, it's easier and more effective, because the last thing I should probably say is that understand that when we're talking about trauma, we're talking about that trauma is caused by, you might, by not being able to process an experience, or by basically an emotion that wasn't able to be processed, and then our nervous system gets stuck, you know, and we go, you know, we go right back to that experience in a sense, whether we, you know, and we start doing the same type of pattern. It's an emotional problem. If I hate to say that way, but you know, you can't fix something that isn't quite right with the emotions by doing your mind over matter, which a lot of people try to do. And I used to do that. And actually, to be honest, what happened with me is I did that because you know, where there's a will, there's a way. You know, you just push, push. And I ended up with more. Some things did improve, but other things, I had these like walls that I could not get through until the somatics. I
That
could
sounds
not.
powerful.
It is. It's very powerful. It's amazing. It's amazing. And just again, the depth that you can help people and to be freed of. I have a woman who's been very generous. She allows me, she says, you can talk about anything we've ever done, you know, because she wants it to be helped. Well, this woman had had this incredible, sad experiences as a child. Her mother would be going in and out of the mental hospital. Her father was out working most of the time. Um, she would get to crazy fits to where like the children all had to leave the house or they had to farm them out to other people. Um, she once stopped. I mean, her mother was going to take a board and she was afraid she was going to kill her sibling.
Wow.
So she had to stop her mother from doing that. Well, later and she had two, um, the one, what did he have? Multiple dystrophy. And then the other sister of hers had some kind of impairment. So this woman had to, as a child, had to mother her mother. And the father was very, very into the work, and and wouldn't really allow her to take care of her own physical needs sometimes, like go to the bathroom and things like that. And then the mother ended up getting killed with the sister in a car accident.
Deep trauma.
So deep trauma. And then the the brother who was multiple dystrophy, he muscular dystrophy, sorry. He ended up dying. And then the woman got married, and then the husband, at the, you know, marriage, um, for the dance, first night of the dance, he only danced with the obligatory one or two dances, and then he was goofing around with the groomsmen the whole other time. And she's like, well, you know, she was wanting his attention. And he's like, well, I never get to see them. So that was her wedding night. And then later, he ends up finding a more attractive woman and leaving her.
That's harsh.
And we were able to get to the point where she used to always flash back to that night of her wedding. Doesn't flash back anymore. It's amazing. And then she's got, see the one, was it the brother maybe had seizures? Well, she's got other relatives that have seizures, and she's actually able to handle that because it's just amazing. And it's amazing the forgiveness that she came to. And I think of another man I was working with, and it was amazing. We came up on one thing, and then it was just amazing that like all the people that he needed to forgive just started coming to mind. And it was just, it was amazing. It's so, you would say almost miraculous results, and results that people would say are, and there's so many, far beyond what anyone would think is even possible. So it's been really amazing. And to see these people able to be freed of these experiences and to be able to love, to be able to trust, to everything. It just, and have a good relationship with themselves, because like this woman I was talking about, she didn't have her self-esteem was very poor.
What advice would you give people who are struggling with toxic shame, deep guilt, or grief?
Um, you know, I would definitely, would encourage them. I'm turning people away, unfortunately, all the time. find someone who can help you, work with somatics. I mean, horse therapy and such, that's really good too. And the equine assisted therapy is very good. But find someone who knows these things and can actually help you process them, like yourself. Someone who will listen to you, who will give you space. And what I mean by that is listening to somebody and allowing you to be as you are. And here's the key one, which isn't always mentioned, but I believe, the key to everything is love. Find someone who can love you and accept you as you are. Um, some counselors and other things like that tend to be kind of a little distant and, in a sense, maybe too professional, too detached.
Mm.
And I think you need somebody who is going to feel with you, because in the end, in order to process an emotion, you need to be able to love the person who is you, who has the emotion. And when you can experience this from another person who can love you, who you know that they love you and they accept you with having this emotion, then that is going to help you to have the ability to do that yourself, because your emotion is not going to process without you having compassion on yourself again with that emotion. It could be rage.
I 100% agree with you. I know I've had people, and you guys know who you are, have done sessions on me, and it makes you feel seen and accepted, and you become friends with them. And it's people I've gone through the training program with, that have given so much support and care and kindness, and it makes a world of difference. Sorry, go ahead, sister. Mother.
Mother. Well, this sounds maybe a little crazy, but all you need is love. Da, 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 da. Anyway, but the love is such an important ingredient.
I've learned from yes, from life, it definitely makes a difference. And people, counselors that actually care and
You
is
know,
genuine and honest.
I was told, I think it was actually the abbess of my monastery. She had psychology, so she was very intelligent. She is a very intelligent woman, and she's not the abbess anymore. Now the next one was voted in, but she actually said that there's a lot of people drawn to the psychological field who are pretty damaged themselves. And if they can't live it and don't do it, they won't be able to help you. And I think those people maybe that seem so distant may have a heart that's been wounded a bit and is shut off, or they were taught this professional way that you have to have this professional demeanor. But in the end, I don't want to try to have them love me. That's not my desire, and I don't need their love, but I want them to know, and I think it's important for them, as you work with them and process, they need to be able to feel and know that they're loved. And the people who can't do that, the question is, sadly, were they ever able to work through the trauma? And if you look at those people, you might find that they are the people who are more getting into the head type of counseling rather than the somatic, which I think is a more a heart type of counseling. So I, I'm a firm believer that we do need to address an emotional wound with using the emotions, but some people were taught not, and maybe a lot of people.
Thank you. And what advice do you have for our viewers?
Oh, boy. I think, I don't know. I guess I would say if you feel, you know, like you need help, please investigate, but listen to your heart too. Because if this person doesn't feel right for you, if you don't feel safe for you, if you feel like they're not listening or don't understand you, then it can be very hard, but don't stay with a counselor, psychologist, or whoever it is that you don't feel is listening to you. Even if there's going to be times where a good life coach or whatever is going to have to sometimes say, no, I don't think you're right there. You're going to feel really listened to with a good one, so I hope and pray that you find those. I would ask you to pray for us here in our work, and we are searching for a new home. So I'd ask you, to please consider praying for that. I'll be praying for you.
And what is your mission, Mother Mary? To spread it around the world, correct?
Well, what we're trying to do is reconciling these relationships, as I said, with self, others, and God. And it really has to begin with self, because if you're not whole in yourself, and if you're not reconciled with yourself, if you can't love yourself, the scripture says, love your neighbor as yourself. It doesn't say love your neighbor more than yourself. It's love your neighbor as yourself, that to a good, healthy person will love themselves. And so we try this reconciliation relationships. And then the active sisters have this part where we especially are focused on defending children from the spirit of evil. So, but you can't protect those children. I found out, some years ago, it's like, I used to think it was all about teaching religion and catechesis, and I'm like, no, it's not. They're getting so wounded at such a young age with the trauma, and, they need to learn how to process emotions, and, the parents need help. But what ended up happening is we couldn't protect the children without helping marriages. We couldn't. And then the parents needed to learn how to work through their own trauma, because if they didn't have their own trauma worked through, then they are not able to act like they want, and even though they want to help their children, they, in a sense, might be keeping to perpetuate that. But what ends up happening is we end up like reconciling, well, people with themselves, and we rebuild the family. And then if we rebuild family, then we're reculturizing society. And the ambitious thing of our mission is actually, and this sounds wild, but this is what caught my heart: the reconciliation of heaven and earth. How do we do that? Well, obviously I need to reconcile with myself. And then if I reconcile with my family, if we can get, these families back together, then we can reculturize society, and we can have that reconciled society that we have reconciled with earth and heaven. So that's our big, exciting mission, the end mission.
And your mission is also, from my understanding, from right, you've told me, I know we have talked a number of times, is to train nuns around the world.
Well, what I want to do, because there's only 4 of us right now, but we have a 4-bedroom farmhouse, and we need to move. But the ambition is that we would have a mother house where you might have a couple hundred nuns, and then you'd have a novitiate, but what we would do is we train sisters to do what I'm doing and then start, monasteries like ours, with all the animal therapy and all the other, the trauma informed life coaching and, in the farm is part of therapy, and start taking these all over the whole world, and that we can change society. Anyone watching, I guess if you said if I gave people one advice, I'm going to give that advice now. Okay, you can make a difference. You can make a difference, a big difference in the lives of others. You can make a difference in the world. And I'd encourage you to know that you can and be, dare to do it, you know.
Amazing. And Mother Mary will not say it, but I will. They do not charge people. They only take donations, and this is a huge undertaking, and they need people to donate. They want to help people around the whole world that are struggling and suffering with trauma. This is a very important cause to me, and I know it hits home for many people. And they're doing a lot of amazing work, and they want to train many nuns to be able to do the same thing. So if you're even able to donate $1, if everyone donated $1, it would make a huge difference. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Mother Mary, for joining. It was an honor having you.
Well, God bless you, Erin. It was an honor being here. And, I sure thank you for, and now since you got me, I'm going to get you. Okay. So Erin is an amazing, amazing person. And she wouldn't tell you that, but she's got an amazing heart and amazing generosity herself. She's given so many free sessions to people. And and I ask you to pray for her and, help her reach that mission, because she has her own mission, which is a very beautiful mission. And I have no idea where this is going to, you have this channel and, this is just beginning. I have no idea where it's going.
Only God knows.
Only God knows.
Well, thank you so much, Mother Mary, and God bless you as well.
All right. God bless.